Perfect. All right, I'll kick off.
Cheers, Dad.
Good evening and welcome to the Joust. My name is Naggy. I'm here as always with my co-host Liam McNeil, but Joust is another special guest for you this week. It's the rugby league journalist with the finger on the pulse. Welcome back to the show, Barry Toohey.
Hello, boys. Thought you'd forgotten about me.
Never, Barry. We'd never forget about you, mate. Welcome back. Thanks for coming on again.
Not a problem.
This is thrice. We've never had thrice guests.
No, we haven't.
This is so you should feel very, very privileged because that's about as big as compliment as we can give.
I love the new surroundings too, guys.
It is. Look, it's very new thing, new song, and new beer as well. I see you've been sampling as well.
Very nice as well. Very nice.
It's a very nice drop from Murray's. It's the Novocastrian brew.
The 262.
The 262.
As Newcastle as it gets.
What's the 262? Is that? Do we know what that means?
Very technical.
Oh, it's a very mysterious and technical term that Murray's playing pretty close to his chest, I think, on that one.
He has,
It's not how much
but,
alcohol's in it or anything.
Oh,
is it?
well, no. That's my own moonshine recipe, that is.
Now, what a week difference makes in rugby league, isn't it? Like, I'll tell you what, last week, Liam, we were very close to reviewing this week. Instead of reviewing the game if it was a loss, reviewing an episode of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. Please text in if you would like us to review an episode of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares instead of watching the game.
Look, it is a favourite pastime of ours, watching and discussing Kitchen Nightmares at length. And yeah, the previous game leading into this week was kind of gave us reason to want to do so. But no, not this week. Not this week, we said.
Not enough faith, you blokes. Not enough faith.
Well, I think you summed it up the best in the press conference, Baz, when you asked, where was that all season?
Yeah, well, that was an obvious question, wasn't it? Given the difference between that the other night and the weeks previous.
Yeah, it looked like chalk and cheese. There was a feeling, I don't know if it was just this feeling because we've got 26 rolls of the die, and maybe we would come up trumps one of them, but there was a feeling around that this could be the one that turned it on its head. We've got a pretty good record against Parramatta. I think maybe people have got those memories of last year when we've beaten them twice.
Yeah, and even in the Spoon year, we beat Parramatta on that little rush we did in 2017, I think it was. So there was always a little bit of confidence surrounding a win against Parramatta, and I'm not sure why.
Did you get that vibe, Baz?
Yeah, there was a bit of a vibe there. I did tip the Eels, so I didn't get much of a vibe. But I generally tip, when I think it's going to be close, I tip the opposition just so that if they do win, then I get something out of it.
Yeah, hedging your bets.
But look, I thought the Eels were coming off that big win down there. The emotion of the new stadium opening, I thought maybe it could be a bit of a letdown up here, and that's how it turned out, with the Knights sort of opening the game really strongly and the Eels on their heels, for want of a better term. So that was great.
Do you think I know there was some whispers through the week that after the game that it was possibly all the contract negotiations, Gutho possibly going to Manly, which we'll talk about in the news. Do you think that's starting to pull them apart?
No. Well, the contract stuff was there the week before, and
That's
what
true.
they do, they put 50 on West. So
That's it. It seemed like a very conveniently timed article.
Yeah, that's just a media. Dare I say it, a media beat up. A media beat up as such.
Well, it was 14 points to 28. It was one of the best starts that I've seen from the Knights in a long time, jumping out to 20-0. And it all came from the first breakthrough of Danny Levi here for the Ponga try. I think we've got a clip just coming up now. And he was under a lot of pressure as well, Danny, coming into this game. I think some people started to point the fingers around, and a lot of them ended up pointing at Danny. But he came out with this 7 minutes in, and that's the kind of football that I think everyone was hoping that we would play this season with. Making the last pass stick, breaking through the line, and just having Ponga being the excitement machine that he was showing that he was last year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were expecting a game like this out of Danny Levi. He seemed to have had a pretty quiet start to the year, and in that try there, he just, showing what he can do, and I think he probably had his best game in a long time for the Knights.
I think he probably had his best game ever in first grade for the Knights. And look, I wrote an article the other day that he's being shopped around, and he's been got permission off the club to be looking around. So look, the club's not sold on him. as such, but if he keeps producing what he produced the other night, or the other day, then they will be, I'm sure.
It's a lot of like I said the week before that I don't think they can get the best out of him when he's making 40-plus tackles and it zaps his running game. But that game, he ran early and then made 40-plus tackles, so it seems like he's got it in him.
He's just got to do it in the right order.
Cameron Smith makes 40-odd tackles every week, so does every other decent hooker
That's
in the
true.
comp. So
Reed Marnie made 69
They
tackles.
well, there was an indication in
unbelievable.
that clip, which you may or may not have seen, was Reed Marnie didn't get to marker properly, and Danny Levi actually went straight past Reed Marnie, who was called offside, so he didn't touch him. And look, in first grade, you make the tackle whether you're called offside or not, and I don't think he'll make that mistake again.
It was an interesting start to the game. I got the jitters that we might have took the lead a little too early and given them too much time to come back.
It was starting to remind me a little bit of that game against the Cowboys last year. The second game against the Cowboys, got out to that early lead and then didn't score again for the next
14-0 and then
60 minutes, I think.
lost 18-14
Yeah,
or something.
and it felt like the crowd was getting a bit of that feeling too. It all went a bit quiet just after half-time when the Eels started plugging it back. But I thought Mitchell Pearce was an absolute standout. He had one of his better games I've seen him play for certain for a long time.
Well, I think it's been unfair, the sort of pressure that's been put on him as far as, saying that, that he's in poor form. I think he's made some mistakes, but I think he's been so involved in everything. He definitely hasn't gone missing, but we haven't seen that classic Mitchell Pearce game unlike that one before in this season. Would you agree, Baz?
Yeah, I think he was a slow start of the season for Pearce, and nothing to do with effort. I think he's tried his heart out every game. But I thought in the second half against the Gold Coast, even though the game overall was poor up there, I thought there were signs in the second half that the attack might be coming back, and a little bit more luck up there, they would have scored a few more tries. So look, he took it pretty personal. He's been taking it pretty personal. I think a few of the other boys took it personal as well. So that's the result you get when you roll up your sleeves and have a decent crack.
I think his kicking game was the difference as well. He was really controlling the game with his kicking. It wasn't the usual, 40 metres out, let's launch a bomb. He was plugging the corners. He was putting it over the sideline. He was kicking long. He just seemed to have every kick in his arsenal on.
I thought that was Parramatta's fault. I thought they weren't putting anywhere near as much pressure on him that St George did or Manly did. Or even the Gold Coast managed to do. It just seems like they took the foot off as far as pressuring Pearce, where he obviously can turn a game when he's on.
The problem you had for the Eels is that they were on the back foot. So it's always easy, if you're on the front foot and you're winning the ruck, it's always easy to put a pressure on the halfback.
Yeah, which was amazing. That's not something we see often, the Knights winning the ruck.
They haven't won the ruck. I think they may have just won the ruck against Cronulla in the first game, although there wasn't much in it. But since then, they haven't won the ruck at all, and that's been the difference. I mean, on the front foot, your halves play a lot better. Simple as that. He looked, and I even wrote the fact that he looked a little bit like Andrew Johns at times on the weekend with some of the stuff he did. The try he scored was very Joey-like. The two tackles he made, one on Mitchell Moses, and the other one was on Blake Ferguson when he put him over the sideline there. They were very Andrew Johns type, inspiring moments in the game. So.
I think we got a clip here of the of Pearce's try that was looking very much like Johns. It was almost like the Johns jink that he had in that.
And he even had the fist pump at the end of it.
Yeah. It might have been channeling Joey here, but it's still quite a fair way out from the line, and he had to beat number 10, I think it might be Joseph Paulo. He had to beat him twice. He had to step once and step him again, and so he had a lot of work to do. And he tried that a few times this season, and that's the first time that's come up. But I tell you what, that really sealed the game for us because it was still in the balance at that point.
That's it, and that big left foot, then off the right foot, it was beautiful. I saw that right foot step as kind of a mirror of Fittler's left foot step. I thought it was a beauty, absolute beauty. But it was good to see the forwards get over in the middle.
We cancelled Hats Off last week. Hats Off was to a player we thought did particularly well, but we've given it now to the people.
Well, couldn't you find anyone last week?
It's the people. We just thought
we dug and we dug.
we put it to rest. We gave it a bit of a nap, but we've put the vote to the people each week now. And who did the people vote in this week's Hats Off?
This week it was that very Joey-esque performance from Mitchell Pearce. 62% of the Facebook vote and 60% of the Twitter vote. He racked up a try assist, 3 tackle busts and an offload. But I thought it was his control of the game that really put the Knights, into the lead and maintained the lead as well. I thought the way, he just kept Parramatta on the back foot with his kicking. He was a huge part in maintaining that lead and then extending it towards the end.
He played a really good game, and obviously we spoke about Danny Levi, and he was my pick for the Hats Off as well. I think just the start he seemed to give us really, really opened it up.
Clemmer had another massive game, 202 run meters as he tends to do. And we've spoken about it throughout the year, Baz. It's quite amazing to see him just come in, and you expect a warming up period for a front rower to find his place in the forward pack. But he's just kind of come in and been the key cog in that forward pack, even through a number of losses.
Yeah, he's like a machine, isn't
Yeah.
he? I mean, he's I think he's averaging 180 metres or something. And the thing with Clemmer is that I think his post-contact metres are higher than anyone else in the comp. He gets 2 or 3 on him, and he seems to turn himself around and goes backwards, but takes him for another 5 or 6 metres. So he's been enormous.
He was well supported by Dan Safedi. I thought
he was great.
Yeah, he came out with a really strong performance.
He ran for about 130 odd metres, made some good yards and aggressive in defence as well. Right, he showed it right off the kickoff. He raced up and he ended up missing, but right off the kickoff he was racing up to make a hit.
And I think that's what he needs to do. And I think they could be a good starting pair, possibly better than James Gavay and Jay Gavay and Clemmer. It seems to be that. I think you get the best out of Safedi when he's playing with Clemmer. That's just my opinion, but maybe.
Well, you got one agreeer here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see some. I thought last season we got the best out of Dan Safedi later in the season, and I think we're going to get that again. It was not all, rainbows and lollipops and unicorns in the sky, because it was, we did concede 14 points there from a 20-point lead. Where did you see the game going wrong? Baz, I'll open up to you.
Oh, look, I think possession-wise, they got back into it towards the end of the first half there and looked pretty dangerous at times, and the Knights were probably lucky to stop them from scoring again. I think Ponga they were going to score for all money when I can't remember who went through, or somebody went through.
There was quite a few line breaks from Parramatta.
Yeah, Takarangi at left centre, I think.
Yeah, might have been Takarangi, was it? I'm not sure. I can't remember at the moment. But and Ponga ended up knocking the ball down. But he had 2 or 3 blokes on his inside. Would have scored. They would have scored for sure. And that was another try just on half time. Would have made a massive difference. And look, it swung with possession basically.
Yeah.
They looked dangerous when they had it. Even in the second half there, when they got back to within 6. As you guys mentioned before, they did feel as if surely they're not going to lose from 20-0 up. But there was a possibility at that stage that that could have happened. But the momentum swung back, and the Knights got back into control.
Mm-hmm. Thank God for that as well, because I think that it could have been a very different result for the club's trajectory as far as what would happen if they lost it. Do you think, Baz, we spoke about last week, the elephant in the room being Brownie, how long is his tender there if this form continued? And if he had lost that game against Parramatta, I'm sure the conversations would have had to been had around who is going to replace him at the end of the season if they back him to that time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to hang on? And
well, at this stage, look, it's too early. And I wrote the other day in the Newcastle Herald, there's no one else out there at the moment that you would replace him with. That's the biggest. That's the biggest issue, and that's the biggest thing in Brownie's favour. Apart from the fact that the team can dig him out of any hole that he's in at the moment or was in. There's no one else to replace him at the moment. No standout contender.
Which the Sydney media seems to be ignoring. I read there was quite a few articles last week from the darlings of the Sydney Rugby League media saying that Brownie's job's done and is gone. But you're exactly right. There's no one out there.
They're just speculating. They don't really know what's happening up
Actually,
here.
We've got a bit of Sydney media speculation in the news later on as well.
We'll circle back to that. Well, that's interesting to see. Look, in my opinion, I don't ever think...
And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Brownie's going to be not reappointed, but he's going to be safe for next year. I mean, it all hinges on what happens from now on.
Yes.
But the talk of him being replaced in the next week or two, or the next 3 weeks if they lose, was not right. It's not going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that it won't happen down the track, but it's not going to happen in the short term.
I'm not a fan of mid-season sackings.
We discussed last week. Yeah,
but at the same time, I feel like West might want to be seen to be reactive, to a problem, and with mounting pressure and a lot of footy heads around that club. With all the responses being that it starts at the top. It seems like the team's too structured now that you wouldn't drop Pearce, or you wouldn't look for a new halfback or a new fullback to try to fix the team. But you could knock the administration off once again, because it seems to be what's happened previously. But I totally agree that if they put in an inexperienced coach, someone that hasn't sort of been tried and tested, that you don't get the results long term. I think you get them in the short term, and then the coach hits a point where they can't manage a problem and then it all slips away. And I think might be seeing that with John Morris at the Sharks with a lot of injuries at the moment, but different challenges for coaches. But who would want to be a rugby league coach? You know, look at Browning last week was fighting for his job, and this week, well, even Pearce was talking about was he the right option for the Knights? And then immediately he puts his hand up for the Blues. Like it's come on, you know. Where does it start and stop?
End? Where does it end?
It was good to see the win, though.
It was very good to see the win. A good crowd as well, I thought. You know, given the rough couple of weeks, you could be forgiven for having a sub 15,000 crowd, but I think it was about 19,500, and it was loud. It was very loud. A lot of Para supporters there. The Para fans brought a really good atmosphere, I thought. They were very countering the Newcastle chant very well, but. It was
not so much late in the game.
No, they quietened very quickly, and I did see them hurrying to the exits. Streaming
out.
Yep. But yeah, a lot of Para fans in Newcastle.
Yeah, I think they're everywhere. They're just sort of spread out. This week, I should say, we've got the Warriors on the Sunday.
Yes.
2 p.m.
2 p.m. on the Sunday. And Barry, as you mentioned, we've got a couple of big ins for the Warriors. Who's back for the Warriors?
Roger Tuivasa-Sheck at fullback.
Oh, Jesus.
Blake Green in the halves, David Fusitu'a in the wing.
That's some big ins.
3 of their better players who missed last week's game against Melbourne, which they should have won.
Yeah, which they
were robbed.
Better team, and you're happy to say it robbed.
Well, the NRL's already come out and said that the penalty that Melbourne received at the death that got them back level and gave them a chance to win shouldn't have been awarded. So I thought they were the better team. The Warriors and deserved to win and didn't get the points, unfortunately for them. But whether that makes them hungrier this week or not with those 3 inclusions, it certainly makes them harder to beat over there. And I think the Knights have won 1 from their past 13 at Mount Smart Stadium. So that's a decent record to try and get over.
That's not good. No,
that's terrible.
That might have been the 2005 one with Joe was still on the side, possibly? I think it might have been. It's a terrible record. I didn't realise it.
It would seem like a very Warriors thing to do, though, to aim up against the best, one of the best sides in the competition, almost knock them off and get robbed, and only to turn up the next week and, not even come close to their best.
Well, there's rocks and diamonds over there. You don't really know what you're going to get. They can play like a top 4 side when they're on and look unbeatable. And even with Johnson out of that side now, they seem. I thought Blake Green was the better of the 2 halves last year, and that's a huge inclusion. And Tuivasa-Sheck is almost doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the forwards and backs. I think he's a real handful.
So I think they'll have to very much keep an eye on him. And Fusitu'a, he just starts their sets off so well. He's such a powerful runner. He loves scoring against the Knights as well. Fusitu'a.
Great in the air.
Yeah, great in the air. He's seemingly got it all. So they'll really need to avoid kicking to him, which it was one thing I thought was very odd early in the game on the weekend. The Knights were bombing to Blake Ferguson's wing, which seems a bit silly, as he's one of the better aerial wingers in the game. So hopefully they don't do that to the Fuss this week, because he's pretty handy under the high ball.
There's a strategy to that, Liam. There is a strategy to that.
Oh,
that
my
God.
People
say, why do they keep putting these bombs up to blokes like Blake Ferguson who never drops one, or he does drop the odd one, mind you. He has got a clanger in him occasionally, but very rarely. But the logic in it from a rugby league point of view is that you put a bomb up to Blake Ferguson in his corner, which allows your defence to get down there, and he doesn't get any momentum to bring it back. And because he's playing the ball afterwards, he's not the first carry from his own try line, so he's not making the 10 or 12 metres from the first carry either.
There we go.
That kind of insight isn't
welcome
on this show, Baz. All right. We're like short, sharp. No, we shouldn't do it. Let's move on.
I like that. That's very good, because that is one thing that Blake Ferguson does so well, is he starts their sets off.
Correct.
Huh. Oh, that makes sense. There you go. That's another positive then.
We'll hope maybe they will kick it to the foots. Down there.
Because that is what he's very good at, getting them on the front foot right off the start of a set.
I thought, leading into this patch of poor form, I thought what the Knights have on their side is the next few games is, we don't have any of the big 4 coming up against us. The Warriors haven't played their best football. I think we've got the Bulldogs as well, and the Tigers somewhere around there.
And the Dragons is after the...
Dragons in there as well. And
Mudgee.
It seems to be years ago that when we were playing the Dragons and we lost by a point and, Manly was close, it seems like we've fell down the pecking order a fair bit since then. But that game, obviously, against Parramatta, has stoked a few fires, I think, in the players, and hopefully, obviously, you're only as good as your last performance, but if we can repeat it, as against the Warriors and start that 3 on the road, we can be back in the chat of at least competitive sides.
Because I was having a look, and we're really only 2 wins outside the 8 at this point.
Yeah, well,
mathematically,
there's a couple of sides that have fallen. That seem to be coming the other way down. They've hit a bit of a rough patch. Mentioned the Sharks before with the amount of injuries that they have, sitting on about 6 points and 9th or something like that. And at the beginning of the season, I think everyone thought they were going to be up there top 4 with the side that they can put on the table. But it's just it's one of those games. And
Rugby league's a funny game.
It's a funny season when you walk because it's all about working up towards state of origin, and then everyone seems to have a bit of a break as far as the regular season. Then you flash back, and then you go, oh, it's round 18. Who's making the finals? So this period leading up to, we only really have to win enough games so that you can be competitive in the origin period. That's my
which will be it'll be an interesting origin period.
How many games is that?
Well, I think we gave away all the games that we could afford to lose. I was hoping to win about half of them, but so if we can get to round 12 and be 5 and 7, that's correct maths. That's
very good maths, Naggy.
We'll be hoping for something a little bit better, but it's obviously we can back it up against the Warriors. What do you think? We can beat the Warriors?
I think we can beat the Warriors, but it hinges on how well we play, obviously, and how well they play. And you touched on it before with the Warriors, you just don't know what they're going to bring, and if they're on song, well, we could be in trouble. But a lot of it hinges on whether we can replicate what they put out there the other day.
A lot of this is the first week that I've seen that we haven't seen someone on Facebook come out. Well, I haven't seen anyone on Facebook come out and say Josh King named in the side again. Josh King has not played a bad game for us. I think he's done his job every week that he's been put on the bench as a prop forward.
Got to agree with you.
He's been put on the. He came out and did his job again there. And because we won, no one's pointing the finger at Josh King. So just remember, I think it's important to think Josh King isn't the reason we win or lose, because he goes out there, does his job, and he was playing for 18 minutes or something and still had a very healthy workload.
I think he's done a fine job this season. I know he copped a lot of criticism from the Knights fans in the past. Some would argue it's slander, but I think he's had a really good season so far. You
spoke with Josh earlier in the season, did you, Baz? Yeah. What was it like chatting to Josh about his...
Well, he's, put it this way, he's smart. He is a smart guy, Josh King, a very smart guy. I'd rate him one of the smartest guys in the team, actually.
I thought you were going to say one of the smartest props.
IQ, well, that doesn't say a lot, does it? IQ-wise, but he's off social media now, and I don't blame him for being off social media. Josh King's probably my Twitter feed. Josh King this season's probably dominated the most mentions on my Twitter feed. Just the majority of them derogatory, but as you say, in the last couple of weeks, haven't seen anything about Josh King from anyone.
It's important to remember these times that you think, if he's just the go-to bloke and the easy target, I don't see why how a bench prop playing 18 minutes can change or turn aside, and he's put in a fair workload for.
Hasn't made a mistake.
No.
Made all his tackles. I thought his carries at the weekend were really good.
Yeah.
When
he's starting to get some post-contact meters now as well, which was something he didn't really have in his game previously. But he's starting to bend the line a bit. So.
Well, it's only a few years back he wasn't full-time. He wasn't a full-time player. He was still working in the mines up around Singleton. So you got to, and he's not that old. So you got to take that in consideration as well. He's made big improvements from last year. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Last year there was get the mistake out of his game, and he's done that. So anyway, just to be noted that Josh King is on the up.
And something I like is that Brownie's kept the halves pairing the same this week. I know we've had some issues in the start of the season with halves and who's playing where and chopping and changing, but kept it the same this week with Mitchell Pearce and Connor Watson. I think that's a good pairing to go forward.
I think it works.
They just need time.
I think it's just the best. Like, I think Connor Watson was unlucky against the Titans because he made the mistakes close to the line last year. He did everything but put the ball over the line, double movement. He threw the ball on the ground. The sliding doors moment, he could have, stolen that game back off the Titans. It's, I think he's a quality player, and I think he knows his role when he's playing with Pearce. And I think if we try to muck him around and play him in hooker in a position that he's even said when he was on here that he doesn't like to play, I think he looks like a hooker, but I don't think he plays like a hooker.
Look, I think anywhere on the field he's dangerous because he's got speed, and and he's small. He can get around. But he has got those errors in his game. And look, I spoke to him the other day too and did a feature on him for the Herald, and he said he's got to he's a little bit frantic. He gets a little bit frantic at times, and that's what costs him in those moments where he might drop a ball or throw a bad pass. He just gets a little bit uptight. He just needs to relax in those big moments. Fast feet, slow mind, I think was might have been the headline of the story, and that's what he's trying to do. Slow his mind down. His feet are quick, but he just needs to slow the mind down a little bit and play a little bit slower.
We've got slow feet and slow mind.
That's why we're here. I think it's time for the news, guys. That's your camera up there, Baz, if you want.
Well, you didn't give me a warning about that one.
What have we got in the news this week?
Now, we've got a few items in the news. Now, Buzz, we wanted to get your thoughts on this one first, Barry, because it's a bit of a humorous little interaction that we don't often see in rugby league. It's a bit of a good old-fashioned player-journo feud.
Well, this is the Buzz Rothfield,
James
Maloney one.
Buzz Rothfield.
Which they've now settled, by the way.
They've settled it already.
That's a shame.
Oh, that's boring. I was hoping it would
fester.
Fester and extend out to at least until we release this episode. But
I think maybe Rothfield may have made the phone call to Maloney last night.
Okay.
So he did make the phone call and
patch things over.
Patch things up.
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever had any had any feuds with players in your time?
I was going to ask, because you're very active on social media and especially Twitter. I think a lot of people can contact you via Twitter and have the interaction, which is pretty rare and new for journos and media types alike. But has there been any players to reach out not liked something you've written, or maybe had?
Over the years.
Yeah.
Not so much recently, but over the years there's been some
phone calls, or is it?
Oh no, they generally front up. If it's Knights players, they'll generally front up and say they haven't liked something or whatever, or what's this about, or that sort of stuff. I mean, that happens. Not so much on social media like it did with this one, but back then they didn't have any social media either. So
it was interesting. I thought Liam does a good impersonation of Buzz.
I've been working on my butt. Oh,
that's right. Well, it's the look over
right
the glasses.
Into the chair and he looks over the glasses and James Maloney has been. He's quite sad. Ever Penrith, something like that, something of that nature.
That's very good. Yeah. I was going to give you a clap, but I couldn't find it.
Thank you.
What else we got in the news?
What else we got in the news? Now, that same Daily Telegraph is reporting that James Roberts may be headed to South Sydney to replace GI.
Now, this is sorry to interrupt you, Liam.
No, that's all right.
There's two high-profile Broncos players leaving the Broncos supposedly. Is this people jumping the Seabold ship, or?
Oh, I don't think so. I think the Nicarima stuff's correct. I think he'll be at the Warriors, and maybe sooner rather than later.
We've heard.
Not before this weekend, though, which is handy. But I'm not sure about the James Robert one. I think there's lots of speculation around that, but Souths have come out and said that they're not chasing a centre, but who knows? They might not be the case either. But I'd be surprised if anything happens there in the short term.
We've had rugby league clubs say a lot of things they're not doing, and they end up doing them, so that'll be an interesting one to see. And they've got the money to play with in the cap now, I believe. Has the GI situation been sorted regarding the salary cap?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, and if it has been, then I would have thought there'd be 15 other clubs in the competition that would be kicking up an almighty stink about it, because that's not how it's done.
Reasonably so, yeah.
I mean, Nathan Ross is, retired. Medically retired, but his money from this year is still in the cap for this year. So how they can possibly, get away with getting his money out of the cap for South is beyond me.
That's it. It seems like they're treating a player of his standing, giving him different rules for.
Well, they can't, and the other clubs won't. And I know there's already been a couple of clubs already say, well, hang on a second, this is not going to happen. I know the Bulldogs have come out and said, well, that's not going to happen. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But
if it does, it's a really bad precedent to set, I think, because you get, it happens. It's sort of floated around with Watmo from when he went to Parramatta, and then was sort of, it seemed like he,
But this is a little bit different, Naggy, because what they're doing with this one is that they're saying that Inglis's money for this year can go out of the cap because he's not there anymore. because he's got this injury and he can't play and he's retired. But that's you just can't happen. That can't happen because it's never happened, and it's rules for some and not rules for others.
Yeah, and you can imagine clubs having players that get another season and they're on their last sort of season that they're going to play anyway, and they might be pushed out the door if that's the case. If that's a precedent that's set, if you know what I mean.
Exactly right.
And then you get players retiring mid-season and whatnot just because they're a little bit out of touch and probably shouldn't have been re-signed.
But if there's one thing rugby league pundits love, it's changing the rules for very important players. They absolutely love it, the talking heads in Sydney. You guys notice that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, the testimonial matches and all this. And it's terrible. It should be the same rules for everyone.
We assume that.
Now, bit of Origin news. Actually, I know it's like...
We're getting there. We're getting closer. Yeah.
Brad Fittler seems likely to stick with his halves pairing from last year. They're not in the best form at the moment, but I think, if anything, Origin's shown that a bit of loyalty and a bit of pick and stick can work. What do you reckon?
Well, hopefully. There was chats about possibly, putting... I really... Last season, because we won the Origin, I don't know, it was a bit of a blip in my radar. I can't really remember the team, but it was so many people that were involved in that.
We had such a wonderful time.
We had such a wonderful time, I think, because I was quite pissed when it all happened. I've just forgotten the game. But look, I would stick to the structure, and then you get players in on form. There's talks of Jesse Ramian playing the Blues. He's named in Craig Wing's side, I think, on social media, and a few others. That's a real surprise to me because I don't feel like the Knights are getting the best out of him. Definitely not form-wise. Would you agree, Baz?
Yeah, well, he hasn't got the ball, so he hasn't been able to show too much.
But when he has got it,
he's a quality player. He's got an injury, mind you, a shoulder injury that he'll take into the game on the weekend. But on form and what he's done for the Knights this year, I think he's probably a little bit behind some of the other guys. It depends a little bit on Roberts. Roberts is obviously incumbent, and if he comes back he's back last week, but if he plays well for the until Origin now, then you'd have to say that he'll be one of the centres and Mitchell will be the other centre. So, Jesse probably just in the background there a little bit, and if he happened to have 2 or 3 really strong games, then who knows? Still a way to go, guys. I know you're talking about it now. But
we're talking about it since round 2.
Yeah, we started early. we didn't really stop talking about last year's series anyway. So,
look, put it this way: and I know I don't know how many weeks away. Is it
5 weeks away?
5 weeks away. If Maloney and Cleary are still playing the same in 5 weeks that they're playing at the moment and have been playing for the last 5 or 6 weeks, then Freddie's going to be under all sorts of pressure to actually pick them on the fact that they were there last year. When there's blokes at other, like Keary, for example, and
Cody Walker's another one.
Walker's been outstanding. He's going to be under all sorts of pressure to pick the Penrith pair just on the fact that they were there last year.
That's it. Where does that?
That's not to say that their form may not improve. Penrith might win a few games and all of a sudden, they're flying again. But as I say, if they're playing like they're playing now, in 6 weeks' time, 5 weeks' time, when they pick the team, 4 weeks' time when the team's picked, then he's going to be under a lot of pressure.
To think about, they only just go over the Knights as well. It was only from pretty much a James Maloney effort that I thought they managed to pip the Knights.
I think James Maloney won them that game for sure.
And so what I mean? Like, if things were different, they could.
Well, they scored with a minute to go against the Tigers in a game the Tigers should never have lost. Scored with a minute to go, and Cleary kicked the goal from the sideline to take it into Golden Point, and then kicked the 40-metre field goal in that game. So that's their 2 wins, the Knights and that game there.
And that's what you want, those players in Origin who can win games. Even a lot of people are saying, they need to show that the other 70 minutes. Realistically, they just need to show it when the game's on the line and when they're about to win, I think. But it's an interesting one, the form over loyalty, how far that carries, because Keary is almost, you couldn't not pick him. He's just playing that well. You'd think he'd have to be one of the first ones picked, but Brad Fittler knows more than I do about Origin.
Yeah, arguably.
Not by much, but he does. Another one, former Knights coach Rick Stone has been appointed the coach of the Lebanese national team. Spotted today, so he'll be following on from the aforementioned Brad Fittler, who did some very good work in the lead up to the last World Cup. And good old Newcastle boy Rick taking over the Lebanese national team.
That's really good. Obviously, he's got experience coaching in national side. I believe he was coaching Samoa,
Fiji.
Not that I ever get those two confused. I knew it was west of Australia, east of Australia. Liam, I'll take it to you. What do you think about the appointment?
I think it's an outstanding appointment. And in one last piece of news before Barry's exclusive, which we'll let build up for a bit.
Okay.
Rugby league has been played in Belarus for the first ever time, with a 9s tournament taking place in the city of Reshista. So I just thought that was pretty cool.
Have done some research, haven't you?
I did.
So
I love to see.
who's playing in that tournament?
Oh, I couldn't pronounce the names. I couldn't spell them. There's some doozies. Well, I believe it was 2 Ukrainian teams, a Hungarian team, and the Belarusian national team, or team that represents their nation, because they haven't got a national structure. Okay. But I thought that was good. I just love seeing rugby league pop up in emerging nations and in new places, because it's a great game, and everyone in the world should know about rugby league. So anytime I see something like that, I'm very excited.
Who's your tip?
Oh, I tipped the locals, Belarus, absolutely.
Yeah. Fair enough.
The Belarus Roosters, I think they were.
There's probably a market for that. We can look it up on William Hill.
Yeah.
Now, Liam, you've very unsubtly gestured that Barry has an exclusive for us tonight.
Everyone's been asking today about Tau Moga. Now, Tau Moga didn't come back out for the second half in New South Wales Cup last week because of a knee injury.
Oh.
So there were concerns over just how bad he is, and obviously he's had those 4 knee reconstructions, and he's been out for 12 months, or just about 12 months, came back first week or second week this season, has been in reserve grade since then, going pretty well actually, but obviously the centres in first grade are going all right too, so he hasn't got a look in there, but he didn't come back for the second half, felt a twinge in his knee before half time, in the bad knee, and so there were some concerns about what may have happened there, but he's had scans, and I can exclusively report for you guys that there's no dramas with his ACL, the cruciate ligament, which is the bad one.
Good.
But he could miss the next couple of weeks with a
strain.
Jeez, that poor bloke.
Meniscus strain, I think they call it.
God.
Meniscal strain, it might be the correct way to put it.
Poor
But
bastard.
he could miss a game or two, probably a couple of games they're thinking at this stage.
Oh, wow.
Now, obviously that's another knee injury to a guy that's had a lot of knee injuries.
Yeah.
Do you know how many seasons that we signed him for? Was it the 2 seasons that we got him, or was it 3?
Yeah, I think he's here for another, maybe, did we sign him for 4? I'm not sure.
Might have signed him for
3 or
4.
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
While we've got you, Baz, also, just on the other name, Herman S.A. Obviously he's found his way back into the side. It was reports that he was looking for other options and possibly shopping himself around, trying to be subtle about it, and then it was emerged. Is this any truth to that, or is
that's what footballers do these days. When they get dropped and they don't think they deserve to be dropped, they think to themselves, well, maybe I should be at some other club. So I'll make some inquiries, and the managers might make the odd inquiry. And look, some clubs might say, well, okay, Herman SESE in reserve grade, something's obviously wrong up there, so why don't we sound them out to see what, and I think St George may have sounded out the Knights about whether Herman SESE might have been, whether he was going to get a go or not, and, but we're told, no, hands off, he's staying, obviously.
Good. I think he's been good coming off the bench.
Herman's, he's had some work to do with his defence. That's been the biggest issue with him, and he's probably his work rate. Can be a little bit lazy at times, and the laziness, that's where it affects him in defence. So I think he's sort of cleaned that up a little bit in the last few weeks, which is why he's back on the bench. And he's the sort of player that the Knights need. He's got that explosive footwork and probably more so than any of their other forwards. So if they get him back and going really well, he hasn't played too many minutes, but he could be an integral part of a Knights resurgence down the track.
He's been pretty good coming off the bench as well in his last few games back. Notice he's brought some real spark off the bench with him.
I was happy to see him back. Just as some players think that I might be better off at another club, some people think I might be better off at another pub, and that pub is the Commonwealth Hotel. It's my favourite pub to go to. And
there's no better pub in town.
That's the best segue I've ever heard of.
It's a bloody great venue that I'll be sure to be watching the Knights game this Sunday against the Warriors, because it's a
2
away
p.m.
game
on Sunday.
I usually fly over to New Zealand for the game, but this week I said no, I'm going to stay and watch it at the Commie. Just like being there, really.
Yeah.
It's a very similar atmosphere. Liam, how's the lower grades going?
Look, the lower grades had a pretty good week. Reggie's won 24-20 against the Magpies. They've got the Warriors over there as well next. Jersey Flegg had a loss against the Eels 24-16, but they're playing the Warriors over the ditch next as well. Harold Matts won against the Panthers 20-6. Now their next game is the Bulldogs, and that's the grand final for Harold Matthews. And the Tarsha Gale Cup side won against the Dragons 36-28, and they'll be playing the Eels next week in the grand final of the Tarsha Gale Cup. So 2 out of 3 for the juniors through to the grand final. So things are looking pretty good.
Baz, I've asked all the guests that are very close to the club and the players involved. But who do you see in the New South Wales Cup, or the Canterbury Cup, I think it's called now, or the Jersey Flegg, that's really making some noise down there and you think might be a first grader in waiting?
Oh, no one really at the moment.
Okay, that's
It's a very young side, the New South Wales Cup side. So look, I don't know that. Obviously, Jacob Safidi's back.
Yep.
But he's only been coming off the bench and playing limited minutes while he's recovering from his broken leg. And there's not too many others down there. Jamie Bureau's obviously captain when he plays. He played in the first half last week.
There's the fellows with the strange names, Phoenix and Bo and
yeah.
whatnot.
Look, they're. I don't doubt that they're going to be up there at some stage, but they're only young blokes. Phoenix Crossland's the halfback. He's 5'8". He's only 18.
Because I don't
Bo
watch...
Firma, the back rower. Sorry,
Yeah,
mate. Bo
no,
Firma, the
sorry.
back rower. He's only a young bloke too. He's just out of 20, so he'd be 21. Maybe a year away. There's a few others as well. There's a couple of young guys in the lower grades that are going to be outstanding. Bradman Best, for one, who scored 4 tries a couple of weeks ago in 20s. He's a fantastic talent, but he's still only 17. And we've got Stafford Toa, who's been out injured, who's played first grade in the trial against Cronulla at Maitland.
Scored that try in the
Scored
in the
that
trials,
trial
the
on his
only
first
trial.
touch
Yeah.
in first grade. He's only 20 as well. He's a great talent, but as I say, he's been out with a busted hand, so he's not back for another month. But look,
Zach Wolford, is he any chance of playing first grade this year? I haven't seen too much Canterbury Cup or his form.
Oh, it depends if the team runs out of hookers, probably, I suppose. Look, I think he's a bit down the pecking order at this stage. He's probably got a little bit of work to do. He was bought here, obviously, as a backup hooker, and who knows, he could get a run at some stage, but I wouldn't say his form in reserve grade's been good enough at this stage to have him figuring in the, Jamie Bureau, for example, would be someone that'd be ahead of him. And you've still got Connor Watson, who doesn't want to play there, but he might have to at some stage. So.
It's going to be an interesting season. Hopefully we can make the most of it. Make sure you check out Toohey's News on this Saturday. It'll be coming out. What time is it usually out online?
When I put it out online, basically. Just depends. It was online on Friday night last week, which
Was it
for
really?
the first time in a while. But
Cool.
normally it's early Saturday morning. It's either late Friday night or early Saturday morning online.
Outstanding.
We'll keep an eye out for that.
Or you can just buy the paper.
Or you can buy the print form.
Newcastle Herald.
Yeah, the Newcastle Herald. Fine paper. That's the only one I go to for papers. Liam, thank you for joining me this week
A
again.
pleasure, Naggy.
Baz, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks very much. If you like us, please like us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook's the main one there. Please like us on that as well. And
YouTube.
That's
YouTube
it.
as well.
There's always this is
There's
how many
always one.
this is how many mediums we have to do now just to keep our head
Just to
above
get
water.
by.
Well, hopefully you guys are in as good a mood next week as you are this week.
Oh, so do we.
after another win.
Probably not. Fingers crossed, but hopefully not. But hopefully something. Hopefully, yeah, because I can't remember just waking up after a night's game and thinking, "Gee, this is good."
Felt good, didn't it?
It really eased my hangover straight walking into work. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks very much.
Very good, guys.